Welcome to this ConedaKOR tutorial. In this video, we will demonstrate how to use one of ConedaKOR's APIs. We will code a simple JavaScript component that allows your users to search the Maya image archive, and we will integrate the component with the Wordpress CMS system. It will look something like this, and it could be used on a project page to provide quick access to the data or, with slight adaptation, as data entry assistant within another database system. For web development, the toolchain ecosystem is enormous and it's growing fast. For a task like our component, there are many frameworks and tools to choose from, like React, AngularJS, and Vue. And there are many options for post-processing JavaScript code. However, to keep things simple, we will use plain JavaScript, and we will use only features supported on all modern browsers. So you don't need to know anything about specific frameworks or tools, only the basics about HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. On the left, you can see an empty WordPress 6.1.1 instance. It has just been installed and no further modifications have been made. On the right, we'll use a text editor to write our actual code. First, we add a function that takes a CSS selector. We will later use it to tie our functionality to specific HTML elements on the page. This has the advantage that the functionality can then be placed anywhere on the page with WordPress. After setting the URL to our ConedaKOR instance, we iterate all elements on the page matching the selector. Within the loop, we define a couple of helper functions making up the search functionality. We start with a function to create new HTML elements. We additionally allow for HTML attributes to be set as well as the content. The function calls createElement and getAttributes behind the scenes. Now that we can easily create new elements, let's use that functionality to build the basic component structure. We are adding an input field and an empty list to our component. We switch off the browser's autocomplete feature so that it doesn't interfere with our event handlers. Next, we add a search function which will make the requests to ConedaKOR. To that end, we set a couple of parameters specific to the ConedaKOR installation we are requesting the data from. Essentially, we are asking for entities of type artifact, and we want to get related images for each artifact as well. With the values collected in an object, we combine them to a query string. The actual request is triggered by the fetch function. Once the data is returned, we parse it as JSON. ConedaKOR always returns a collection of items in a specific structure. Please consult our developer documentation for more details. For now, we'll just have a look at the ConedaKOR frontend, which uses the same API endpoint for the search page. With a Chrome inspector, you can see one of these structures for a search with the term pumpkin. Specifically, the actual entity records can be found through the records key. So back to our code. We will simply pass every record to a render function we will write in a moment. The function takes the artifact data and returns an HTML li, a list item. The list item should also include all related images. We therefore iterate the artifact's related entities and filter them by a relation name that makes sense for our use case. We add the cross-origin attribute to the image so that no unnecessary cookies are sent to ConedaKOR when the browser loads it. Finally, we are adding an event handler to the input element so that the search function is triggered when the user presses any keys while the input is focused. That will work in principle, but the experience isn't great because the user might type quickly and for each keystroke there will be a request to ConedaKOR. Sometimes these requests aren't answered in the order they were made, and that produces unexpected results for the user. A common pattern is to introduce a small delay before the request is actually sent. To do that, we wrap our search function in a second function that deals with the delay. The basic idea is that requests are only made after 300 milliseconds And if there's a new keystroke event during that time, the counter resets. Now we are ready to add our code to WordPress. The CMS is extendable with themes and plugins, and we could write our own plugin to add our component to WordPress. But for a simple use case like ours, we can use a less involved way. WordPress comes with an example page where we will add our ConedaKOR search component. We do this by editing the page, adding a suitable headline and removing everything else. Now we add several custom HTML boxes. First, a box that holds the target element for our component. Second, a box with our JavaScript code. And then last, a box which applies the code to the target element. We then add some CSS to clean things up a bit, like this. After a click on the preview button, we can see that it works, and we can search for terms like ceramic. To constrain the search field and results to the content column, we add the HTML element box to a group. And with that, we just wrote a UI component interacting with ConedaKOR's JSON API. By the way, the software's web interface interacts with the backend only through that API, so it exposes all available functionality. For more detailed information on how to use ConedaKOR's APIs, please have a look at our developer documentation. Thank you for watching this ConedaKOR tutorial.